The cameras flashed, but they weren't capturing a moment of triumph. They were capturing a public execution. Damien Vane, a man who owned the city skyline, stood over his wife, Elsa, her custom-made gown torn from shoulder to waist. He was laughing, a cold, brutal sound that echoed in the sudden silence. He thought he had won, thought he had proven she was just another one of his possessions. He was wrong. The silence shattered with 4 words from her, and by the time she finished, the laughing had stopped. His reputation was already a corpse, and she was just getting started. The Vane Foundation Gala was not merely an event. It was the gravitational center of the city's universe. Held in the celestial 3-story ballroom of the Astoria, it was a night where the 1% gathered to trade millions in the name of charity, all under the meticulously crafted benevolent gaze of Damien Vane. The room itself was a masterpiece of his power, a glittering galaxy of diamonds on necks and wrists, the air thick with the scent of Duchess, roses of varietal he had personally commissioned, and the competing expensive perfumes of the wives he deemed acceptable. Elsa Vane, his wife of 5 agonizing years, felt the familiar oppressive coldness of the 30-carat Vane Purity diamond on her left hand. It was a flawless D-color stone, and it felt less like a symbol of love, and more like a beautifully crafted $10 million manacle. She was a prisoner, and this was her cell. She was dressed as always to his specifications. The gown was a deep, iridescent emerald silk, a custom piece by a young, brilliant designer Damien had recently discovered and subsequently approved. Like Elsa herself, the dress was elegant, expensive, and currently serving as a container for Damien's most prized possession. Her instructions had been simple. Smile, Elsa. Look beautiful, and don't talk to anyone. Interesting. For 2 hours she had played her part to perfection. She drifted through the crowd, a serene, smiling ghost. She nodded at the mayor, complimented a judge's wife on her earrings, and feigned fascination with a banker's tedious story about his yacht. Each smile was a crack in her mask, each polite laugh a tiny chip off her soul. She was so very tired. And then she made her mistake. She wasn't just tired. She was momentarily, blissfully forgetful. She laughed. It wasn't the demure, breathy titter he had trained her to use. It was a genuine, full-throated, head-thrown-back laugh. A laugh she hadn't heard from herself in years. The catalyst was Marcus Thorne, a tech innovator whose company Thorne Holdings was one of Vane Industries' few genuine rivals. Marcus was brilliant, unassuming, and most dangerously a good man. He had just told a self-deprecating story about his first failed algorithm, and Elsa had found it utterly charming. From across the room, Damien saw it. He was in the middle of charming a senator, his smile, the one the financial magazines called predatory, plastered on his face. But the smile didn't reach his eyes, which were the color of a winter ocean and had just frozen over. He saw the genuine unguarded joy on her face, saw that it was directed at Marcus Thorne, and the ice in his eyes began to burn. He set his untouched champagne flute down on a passing tray with a precise, resonant click that made the waiter flinch. "Senator, you'll have to excuse me," he murmured, his voice a smooth baritone that charmed billions and terrified his board. A small matter of housekeeping. He began to move. The crowd, sensing a shift in the room's barometric pressure, parted for him, like the Red Sea. Elsa felt the shadow fall over her before she saw him. The warmth of her laugh died in her throat. "Marcus?" Damien said, his voice dangerously light. He didn't look at his rival. He looked at Elsa, his gaze sliding down her body, as if to re-establish ownership. He placed a heavy hand on her bare waist, his fingers digging in. "Trying to poach my rival, or just my wife?" Marcus Thorne, a man with a backbone, didn't flinch. "Damien, always a pleasure." He nodded to Elsa, his eyes kind. "I was just congratulating Elsa on her spearheading of the new children's wing. Impressive work, Elsa. The interactive displays are genius." "My wife has many hidden talents," Damien said. The S in talents was a low hiss. His fingers bit down a clear, brutal warning. Elsa felt a nail break the skin, a tiny, sharp pain. "Well, I'll leave you two," Marcus said, sensing the raw voltage in the air. "A pleasure as always, Elsa." As Marcus walked away, Elsa tried to pull from Damien's grip. "You're hurting me." "I'm hurting you," he sneered, his voice dropping to a whisper that was for her, alone, a sound more chilling than a shout. "You were fawning over him, in front of my guests, in my ballroom. You are embarrassing me." "Damien, stop it. You're making a scene," Elsa whispered back, her smile frozen in place for the orbiting guests. She could see them pretending not to watch, their eyes hungry. "I haven't begun to make a scene, darling," he hissed. He pulled her none too gently toward a recessed alcove, partially hidden by a 12-foot-tall arrangement of white orchids. He thought it was private. It wasn't. A dozen people, including a short, tenacious reporter from the New York Standard named Penelope Reed, had a clear line of sight. "What is your problem?" Elsa said, finally, yanking her arm free the moment they were behind the flowers. Her skin was red where he'd held her. "My problem." He stalked toward her, backing her against the cold marble wall. "My problem is that I gave you a simple set of instructions. Don't talk to anyone interesting. And you, in that dress I paid for, decide to laugh like a dock worker with the one man I am actively trying to crush. He's a decent man." It was a joke. She spat her own anger, 5 years of suppressed fury finally boiling to the surface. "You don't own my laughter, Damien. You don't own me. I own everything in this room, Elsa." He set his face, a mask of cold fury. He jabbed a finger at her. "I own this hotel. I own the reporter in the corner. I own the goddamn air you're breathing. And yes, I own you. You were nothing when I found you. A paralegal with bad shoes and a 2-room apartment in Queens. I gave you this." He gestured to the room, the diamonds, the life. "I made you." "You didn't make me," she said, her voice shaking but gaining strength. "You caged me. You made me a prisoner. You're a trophy," he snarled, his voice rising. "And trophies don't talk back. Trophies don't have opinions. They just sit and look pretty and reflect the light of the man who owns them." To punctuate his point, he reached out. He didn't slap her. He didn't hit her. He did something infinitely worse, more calculated, more demeaning. He grabbed the finely crafted, hand-beaded shoulder of her gown. He looked her dead in the eye, a cruel smile twisting his perfect lips, and he ripped it. The sound of tearing silk was obscenely loud. It was not a small tear. It was a violation. The sound ripped through the ballroom, silencing the 30-piece orchestra mid-note. The emerald fabric gave way from her shoulder blade to her waist, the sound like a shriek. Elsa froze, the cold air of the ballroom hitting her skin. The delicate lace of her bra was exposed, along with the pale, vulnerable skin of her torso. The torn fabric hung from her waist like a flag of defeat. The silence that followed was absolute. It was a vacuum sucking the air from 500 lungs. Elsa could see them all. The gasps, the hands covering mouths, the bright, quick flashes of smartphones held up. She saw Robert Morrison, Damien's COO, his face pale with shock, and to her surprise, shame. She saw her social rival, Cecily Granger, her face a mask of undisguised, vicious glee. And she saw Penelope Reed, her phone up, not just taking a picture, but recording video. And then Damien Vane laughed. It wasn't a small chuckle. It was a deep, arrogant, satisfied laugh. A laugh that said, "See, I can do anything." "See," he said, his voice booming into the silence. "Just a pretty empty thing, easily broken." He turned to the stunned crowd, his arms spread wide, as if presenting a magic trick. "My wife is unwell, overtired." He looked back at Elsa, his smile a rictus of contempt. "Go change, darling. You're an embarrassment." He turned, expecting her to scurry away in tears, a broken doll. He expected the whispers to follow her. He expected to be seen as the powerful, beleaguered husband. But Elsa didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't cover herself with her hands. She stood there in the cold, exposed her spine, straightening with every ounce of steel she had forged in 5 years of silence. She took a slow, deep breath. When she spoke, her voice wasn't a shout. It was cold, clear, and cut through the ballroom like a surgeon's scalpel. "An embarrassment, Damien. That's brave." She looked not at him, but at the guests, at the reporters, at the camera that was still recording. "That's brave," she repeated, coming from a man who built his entire empire on a lie. Damien's laugh froze, cracking in his throat. He turned back his face, darkening from arrogance to confusion, then to cold fury. "Elsa, don't be hysterical. Go to your room." "I'm not hysterical," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I'm not unwell. I'm just factual. Tell them, Damien. Tell them all about Project Chimera." A few people blinked. The name meant nothing to them. But to Damien Vane, it was a guillotine. His face went white. Not pale. White. A bloodless, waxy, terrifying white. "You shut your mouth." "Or what?" Elsa asked, taking a step toward him, her ripped dress dragging on the floor. "You'll rip my other strap. You'll tell everyone I'm tired again." She shook her head. "No. No more. Tell them what you did, Damien. Tell them about Julian Hayes." The name hit the room like a bomb. Julian Hayes, the co-founder, the brilliant, tragic, reclusive partner who had died in a tragic boating accident 5 years ago, just 2 weeks before the company Vane Hayes Innovations went public and became Vane Industries. Damien's face was no longer just angry. It was for the first time in his life terrified. "Tell them," Elsa commanded, her voice ringing with 5 years of suppressed fury, "how you didn't just steal his company. Tell them how you stole his life." The first real camera flash went off a professional strobe that illuminated the raw terror on Damien's face. Then another. And another. Damien Vane's reputation as solid and imposing as the skyscrapers he built had just developed a crack from foundation to penthouse. And Elsa Vane was holding the hammer. The chaos was immediate and total. The hushed whispers of the gala erupted into a frantic roar of murmurs, questions, and an ocean of raised smartphones. Penelope Reed, her reporter's instinct screaming, was already shouldering her way through the stunned crowd, her phone held aloft like a torch. "Mrs. Vane, what are you alleging? What is Project Chimera? Are you saying Julian Hayes' death wasn't an accident? Damien's security. 2 mountains in tuxedos named Frank and Leo finally snapped to action. Back up. Give them space. No more photos." Damien, regaining a sliver of his composure, grabbed Elsa's arm, her bare arm, his fingers biting into her skin like steel talons. "You're done," he hissed, his voice, a venomous rattle that only she could hear. "You have no idea what you've just done. I will not just bury you. I will erase you. You built your house on a graveyard, Damien," Elsa said. And with a surge of adrenaline, she ripped her arm free, a move that shocked him with its sudden violence. The ghosts were bound to show up. She turned, and with her head held high, her emerald gown hanging in tatters. She walked. She didn't run. She walked with the measured, terrifying calm of a woman who had just detonated her own life. She walked straight out of the ballroom, past the stunned senator and the gleeful Cecily Granger. The flashbulbs followed her all the way to the lobby, a storm of light at her back, the sound like 1,000 tiny explosions. She ignored the doorman, who stood with his mouth open, and the waiting, gleaming Rolls-Royce. She walked straight past the velvet ropes into the rainy, unforgiving Manhattan street, where she flagged down the first yellow cab she saw. As the cab pulled away, she finally let out the breath she'd been holding for 5 years. She didn't cry. The capacity for tears had been burned out of her long ago. She was in the cold, clear, terrifying space of action. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was perfectly, beautifully clear. Her mind rewound not to the rip, but to the moment she had known. It wasn't a single moment, but a dawning, creeping horror that had begun 4 years ago, 1 year into their perfect marriage. Flashback 4 years ago. She was Elsa Pierce, a bright, ambitious paralegal at Sullivan & Cromwell, assigned to the Vane Hayes Innovations IPO. That's where she'd met them both, Damien the star, the charismatic rainmaker who could sell ice to a polar bear, and Julian Hayes, the quiet, brilliant, twitchy brain, the one who had actually written the revolutionary code for Project Chimera, an algorithm that could predict market trends with 99% accuracy. She'd liked Julian. He was kind, awkward, and smelled faintly of coffee and anxiety. He'd been worried. The code, it's not just for markets, Elsa, he'd told her in a hushed voice over a late-night file review. It can see patterns in everything, human behavior, resource movements. It scares me. Damien just sees the dollar signs. Then 2 weeks before the IPO, Julian Hayes was dead. Tragic boating accident, the papers said. Off the coast of Catalina. He'd gone out alone at night. A freak storm had blown in. They never found the body. Damien had been a picture of public grief. He'd delivered a eulogy that moved the entire financial world to tears. He'd reluctantly, in Julian's honor, taken the company public himself. Vane Hayes Innovations became Vane Industries, and Damien Vane became a billionaire. Elsa had been swept up in the whirlwind. Damien, in his grief, had turned to her. He'd been charming, vulnerable, powerful. He'd courted her with a focused, predatory intensity that she, a girl from Queens with student debt and bad shoes, had mistaken for love. They were married 6 months later. The lie she had lived in was beautiful. Penthouses, private jets, a life dipped in 24-karat gold. But the foundation was rotten. The knowing came a year into the marriage. Damien was in Hong Kong. She was alone in the 10,000-square-foot penthouse, a place she was mistress of, but wasn't allowed to so much as move a vase. She'd been looking for a tax document in his private home office, a room she was never supposed to enter. The door was locked with a biometric scanner, but she'd been a paralegal. She knew the value of research. The override code was ridiculously his own birthday. In the back of a locked steel filing cabinet, she'd picked the locker skill from a misspent youth she'd never told him about. She found a manila folder. It didn't have a label. It didn't need one. It wasn't a confession. It was worse. It was a set of wire transfer receipts, a series of encrypted emails, and a single terrifyingly simple contract. The transfers for millions were to a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands, Gray Solutions, Ltd. The emails, printed and cold, were to a man named Mr. Grayson, a security consultant. The emails were brief, chillingly corporate. He's not on board. He's a liability to the offering. DV. A liability of this nature can be mitigated. It will be clean. G. Handle it. Make it clean. No body, no questions. DV. The last email, dated 2 days before Julian's accident, was just one word: done, and the contract. It was a key man life insurance policy taken out by Damien on his partner 1 month before his death. The payout was $100 million or worse. It wasn't just the seed money for the IPO. It was the IPO. She had been trapped. She'd put the folder back, relocked the cabinet, and walked out. But she was a different woman. Her prenup had signed away her rights to anything but a post-nup, slid in front of her a month after the wedding, a formality darling for the board, had a fidelity clause and an insanity clause. If she ever betrayed him, or was deemed mentally incompetent, she would walk away with nothing and lose custody of any future children. He had her. She had spent the next 4 years being the perfect, placid porcelain wife, all while she was quietly, carefully building her case. She'd memorized the account numbers. She'd used a series of burner phones to forward encrypted copies of those emails to a secure, anonymous drop. She had been waiting for the one moment he was so arrogant, so high on his own power, that he would push her too far in public. Tonight, he had. The cab pulled up to a nondescript brownstone in Brooklyn. Elsa paid the driver in cash, a thick roll of hundreds she always kept in her Chanel clutch for this exact moment. She walked up to the door and rang the bell 3 short, too long. The signal. A moment later, the door opened. A woman with tired eyes hair pulled back in a messy bun, and the same brilliant, nervous energy as her brother stood there staring. "Sarah," Elsa said. Sarah Hayes. Julian's sister looked at Elsa, at the ripped dress, at the cold fury in her eyes, at the flashing alerts on her phone. "My God, Elsa," Sarah whispered. "You did it. It's everywhere." "I did it," Elsa said, stepping inside. "Now the war begins." Sarah Hayes' apartment was the antithesis of Elsa's penthouse. It was small, cluttered, and vibrantly alive. Overflowing bookshelves lined every wall, stacks of academic papers on botany covered the coffee table, and the air was thick with the comforting smell of old books and strong brewing tea. Sarah, a university professor, had never once, not for a single day in 5 years, believed the official story of her brother's death. "He froze your assets," Sarah said flatly. It wasn't a question. She was holding her phone, the screen glowing with a news alert from the Standard. She handed Elsa a thick grey NYU sweatshirt and a pair of worn sweatpants. Elsa checked her own phone. 1 missed call, 40, 100, all from Damien. Then a text from her private bank, a number she thought was secure. "Account alert. All assets, personal and joint, have been temporarily frozen, pending a spousal review." "Of course he did," Elsa said, her voice muffled as she pulled the warm sweatshirt over her head. The torn, multi-$1,000 silk gown, her last link to her old life, fell to the floor in a heap. She kicked it into a corner. "He thinks money is his only weapon." "Isn't it?" Sarah asked, handing her a steaming mug of tea. Her hand was shaking slightly. "It's his loudest weapon," Elsa corrected, sipping the scalding liquid. "His real weapon is his reputation, and I just put a bullet through it. He's bleeding and he's panicking." Damien's counterattack was swift and brutal. By 6:00 a.m., as the first light of dawn hit the city, Page 6 was leading with a story sourced from an insider close to the family. Tragic breakdown at Vane Gala. Elsa Vane's psychotic break. An insider tells us Elsa has been suffering for months. Paranoia, delusions. It's so sad. Damien is heartbroken and is asking for privacy as he seeks the best medical care for his wife. He has been trying to get her help, but she refused. By 7:00 a.m., it was on a morning news show. A Vane Industries spokesperson, a sharp woman in a pearl necklace was looking at the camera with feigned sympathy. Mr. Vane will not be pressing charges for her outburst. His only concern is for Elsa's health and well-being. He is, as we speak, consulting with the finest doctors. He's trying to invoke the post-nup, Elsa said, reading the article on Sarah's laptop. Her face was grim. The insanity clause. He's not just trying to discredit me, he's trying to have me committed. He's good at this, Sarah. He's so good at making people disappear. He can't do that, Sarah said, but her voice wavered. He can't just say you're crazy. He's Damien Vane, Elsa replied. He believes he can do anything, and he has the judges and doctors on his payroll to prove it. He'll have a court order by noon. The doorbell rang, a sharp, aggressive buzz that made them both jump. Sarah looked through the peephole, her hand at her throat. It's a woman, short, a press badge, Penelope Reed. Elsa's heart hammered. Let her in. Penelope Reed was small fast and looked like she hadn't slept in a day. She wore a rumpled trench coat, and her eyes were sharp, taking in everything, the ripped dress in the corner, the high-end Chanel clutch on the cheap IKEA table, the two women, one in designer clothes, one in sweats. I don't believe his PR, Penelope said, flipping open a notepad. She didn't say hello. I've covered Damien Vane for 6 years. He's a shark. But your accusation, that was different. That wasn't a marital spat. That was a kill shot. So Project Chimera, Julian Hayes, talk to me, and make it good because Vane's lawyers have already offered me a 6-figure exclusive to kill any story I'm writing. Why should I? Elsa asked, testing her. You'll print whatever he pays you to. I work for the Standard, not Vane Media, Penelope retorted. I've been looking for a crack in that guy's armor since he bought out the Observer and fired their entire investigative team. You just handed me a nuclear warhead, but I can't fire it without proof. Right now, you're a hysterical wife. I need evidence, Mrs. Vane, or you're just another page 6 headline. I have evidence, Elsa said slowly. Proof that Julian's death wasn't an accident, that Project Chimera wasn't a market tool, but a surveillance algorithm. That Damien didn't earn his billions. He murdered for them. Penelope Reed's pen stopped. Mrs. Vane, Elsa, if you have that, this isn't a financial story. This is the biggest story of the decade. I don't have it, Elsa said. Not with me. I memorized it. The account numbers, the email headers, the name of the shell corp, Gray Solutions, Ltd. The fixer, a man named Mr. Grayson. At the name, Penelope's head snapped up. Grayson, I've heard that name. A whisper, a rumor in the darker corners of journalism. A guy who cleans things. A colleague of mine, Jack Myler, was looking into Vane's first hostile takeover. He vanished. Car in a ravine. Police called it an accident. Jack's wife, she mentioned Grayson. But a rumor isn't proof, Elsa pressed. The originals. They're on a server, a hard drive, back in the penthouse. Then you have nothing, Penelope said, her face falling. He'll have scrubbed that place clean, bleached it. You're a hysterical wife, with a good memory. No. Sarah Hayes said, her voice quiet, but vibrating with intensity. She spoke for the first time. She has me, and I have Julian's original drives. Sarah walked to a locked closet, pulled out a heavy fireproof safe, and began working the combination. Julian was paranoid, but he was also brilliant. He kept backups. He sent them to me a week before he died. He told me to keep his soul safe. I thought it was his code. I took them to the police, Sarah continued, her voice thick with old anger. They laughed me out of the office. Grieving, sister, they said. Vane's lawyers will ruin you. So I kept them. Safe. She opened the safe and pulled out a stack of hard drives. I never knew what to do with them. I couldn't access them. They're encrypted with a key I've never been able to crack. 256-bit AIS. Penelope Reed's eyes widened. She took a photo of the drives. I know a guy. He's not cheap, he's not legal, and he's completely off the grid. But he's the best. His name is Silas. He's a digital ghost. If anyone can crack this, he can. Then do it, Elsa said. Okay, Penelope said, already texting. Here's the deal. I go to Silas. I start digging on Grayson. You too, she pointed at them. You disappear. Damien's next move isn't a press release. It's a court order. It's a private security team that convinces you to check into a wellness center in Switzerland. You have 24 hours, maybe 48, before he finds you. Where do we go? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Elsa's mind was already working. We need someone Damien can't buy, can't threaten, and can't find. She thought for a moment. I know someone. Damien's old guard, the one man he ever respected, and the one man he's terrified of. Who? His first lawyer, Elsa said. The one who set up the Vane-Hayes partnership, the one he fired for lacking a killer instinct, Arthur Pendleton. A lawyer. Sarah was skeptical. Damien will crush him. Not this one, Elsa said, a grim smile touching her lips. Arthur Pendleton was the one who ever told Damien no. He's the only one who knows where all the original bodies are buried. Arthur Pendleton lived in a pre-war apartment on the Upper West Side, a fortress of mahogany leather-bound books and old-world integrity. He was 70 years old, with a mind as sharp as the crease in his trousers and a gaze that had made hostile witnesses crumble. He had been Damien Vane's first mentor, the man who'd drawn up the original Vane-Hayes partnership agreement. He was, as Elsa had said, old guard. He opened his door at 8:00 a.m., already in a three-piece suit, and his face, a roadmap of shrewd intelligence, showed no surprise. He simply looked at Elsa Vane, a woman he recognized from gala invitations, and Sarah Hayes, a woman he recognized from his conscience. Good God, child, he said, his voice a gravelly baritone. He looked at the ripped, bundled-up emerald dress Elsa was now carrying in a plastic bag. You finally did it. Get in. Quickly. He ushered them into his study, a room that smelled of old paper leather and pipe tobacco. He poured them all a small, stiff brandy. At this hour it's medicine, he declared, handing them the glasses. He listened. He stood by the window, his back to them, as Elsa laid out the entire story. The rip, the file, the emails, Mr. Grayson, the frozen assets, the insanity clause, Sarah's drives, Penelope. He didn't speak for a full minute after she finished. I knew this day would come, he said, finally turning. His eyes were sad. When he fired me, I told him, Damien, your ambition is a fire that will one day consume you. He just laughed. He fired you over the Thorn Holdings takeover, didn't he? Elsa asked. Arthur nodded. 3 years ago, I advised him against it. I told him the methods he was proposing, leveraging a rival's personal medical data to force a sale, was not only morally bankrupt, it was a felony. He said to me, and I quote, Arthur, the law is just a budget item. You've lost your killer instinct. He was right. I'd lost my taste for sociopathy. He looked at Sarah. And Julian, that poor, brilliant boy. I never believed the boating accident story. He was terrified of the water. He wouldn't even go on the Staten Island ferry. He sat down behind his massive desk. Damien Vane is not just a man. He's a fortress. His lawyers, his judges, his PR. They are an army. But every fortress has a flaw. And he said, a faint, cold smile playing on his lips, am the man who drew the blueprints. His phone rang. He looked at the caller ID. Penelope Reed, on speaker. Arthur. Penelope's voice was fast and tinny. I'm with Silas. He's good. He's also terrified. He says the encryption on these drives isn't just standard. It's military grade and it's booby-trapped. If he inputs the wrong key more than 3 times, the drives will self-corrupt. He needs a password. Not a guess. The password. Elsa, Sarah, and Arthur looked at each other. Think Sarah, Elsa urged. A phrase, a name, something he loved. We've tried everything, Sarah said, her voice frantic. His birthday, his dog's name, Project Chimera, Vane sucks. Nothing. Think, Arthur pressed. What was his soul you said he told you to keep his soul safe? What did that mean? I don't know, Sarah said, tears of frustration welling. He was in his own world. He loved old books. He was always quoting. She stopped. Her eyes went wide. Quoting what, Sarah? Elsa asked gently. He had this one stupid dad joke. Sarah whispered, a small, pained smile on her face. When he was stuck on a line of code, or when I was stressed about my PhD, he'd always put his hand on my shoulder and say, Forsan. What? Arthur said. Forsan et hec olim meminisse juvabit. Sarah said, the Latin rolling off her tongue. It's from the Aeneid. It's what he wrote in my high school yearbook. Perhaps one day it will be a pleasure to remember even this. Penelope, Elsa said, grabbing the phone. The password is Forsan et hec olim meminisse juvabit. All one phrase. Lowercase f. They heard furious typing, then a sharp intake of breath from Silas over the line. Holy. I'm in. Access granted. The drives are unsealing, Penelope narrated. Folders are populating. Project Chimera, Yak Source. Damien Correspondence, Black Site Ledger. And one, oh God, one named If I Die. Open it, Elsa commanded. A moment later, they heard the tinny, shaky voice of Julian Hayes fill the room. If you're seeing this... Julian began, his face pale and terrified on the recording. It means I'm dead, or worse. And it means Damien. Damien did it. I built Chimera to find patterns in nature, to predict disease outbreaks to save lives. He perverted it. He turned it into a weapon to control, to blackmail. The video was gut-wrenching. Julian detailed the back door Damien had forced him to build a way for Damien to personally access and control any data Chimera processed. He's been selling it, Julian said, his eyes pleading with the camera. I have the ledger. A copy is in this drive. He sold it to General al-Hamadi in Syria, to a shadow arms dealer in Vladivostok. He's not just a fraud. He's a monster, a traitor. The word hung in the room. Arthur Pendleton gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white. He committed treason, all for money. It's worse than that. Penelope's voice was grim. Silas is in the Black Site Ledger. It's the Grayson file. It's not just wire transfers, it's, oh God, it's a kill list, invoices, sanitization services, LP. Asset retirement, JM paid, Jack Myler. My colleague. LP, Elsa asked. Silas is finding a file on a Dr. Lena Petrova, Penelope said. A data ethicist who reviewed Project Chimera's initial code and raised significant concerns. She committed suicide 2 months before Julian's accident. Damien. He's been cleaning house for years. He didn't just steal a company. Elsa said the full monstrous weight of the truth settling on them. He built an empire of bodies. And now? Arthur said, his voice grim. He knows you are digging. Elsa, you're no longer a hysterical wife. You are the only living witness who can connect him to these drives. You are his next target. You are asset retirement, EV. The revelation that Damien was not just a murderer but a traitor, and that they were now his primary targets, changed the air in the room. The fight for reputation had just become a fight for survival. Damien's panicking, Elsa said, her mind racing. But he's a smart panic. He's not just going to send lawyers, he's going to send Grayson. He already has, Sarah said, her voice trembling. She was at the window of Arthur's study, peering through the blinds at the street 12 stories below. There's a black car, an Escalade, no plates. It's been parked across the street for 10 minutes. A man just got out. He's just looking up at the building. Arthur walked over, his face grim. He knows I was his lawyer. He knows I'm a loose end. He'd assume you'd come to me. This is bad, came Penelope's voice from the speakerphone. Silas is getting pinged, hard. Someone is trying to trace my connection. They're not just brute forcing it. They're sophisticated. They're using... Silas's voice suddenly cut in, panicked. They're using Chimera. I can see the code. It's beautiful and it's terrifying. It's not just tracking me. It's tracking you. It's running pattern analysis on your known associates. My God. It's tracking your phone. Elsa looked at her purse where her frozen Damien-issued phone sat. He's tracking me. No, Silas said. Not just you. He's been running all your names. Elsa Vane, Sarah Hayes, Arthur Pendleton. He's been running queries on you for months. He was already planning. This breakdown at the gala. He's been building a case against you for a while. He was just waiting for you to snap. The full cold premeditation of it all hit Elsa. The ripped dress wasn't just an impulse. It was an escalation. He had been trying to push her over the edge to create a public scene he could use to his advantage. And she had, in her anger, walked right into his trap. The intercom on Arthur's desk buzzed a harsh, violent sound. "Mr. Pendleton," a voice crackled. "Building maintenance. We've got a report of a gas leak on this floor. We need to check your unit." Arthur's eyes met Elsa's. He pressed the talk button. "There's no leak. I'll call the gas company myself. Now get off my property or I'll call the commissioner." "Sir," the voice was polite but cold. "We really must insist. It's a safety precaution." "I'll bet it is," Arthur said. He walked to his desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a heavy, old-fashioned revolver. "Send him up, Doorman. I'd love to meet him." A long silence. Then, "Understood, Mr. Pendleton. We'll check the other units first." "That was him, wasn't it?" Sarah whispered. "Grayson. Or one of his..." Arthur said, checking the chambers of the gun. "He knows we're here. We don't have time." "Silas!" Elsa yelled at the phone. "Copy the drives. Copy everything. Get it to Penelope." "I'm trying," Silas yelled back. "The transfer is... it's huge. The video, the ledgers, it's terabytes. And he's fighting me. Vane is trying to lock me out of the drive remotely. He's protecting the twist Elsa realized. The If I Die video. It's a decoy. There must be something else. Something he's more afraid of." "The black site ledger," Silas muttered. "The treason file. I've got that. Grayson file. Got it. If I Die video. Got it. I'm dumping it all onto a secure thumb drive." "Now." "He's out." Penelope's voice was a shriek. "He's got the drive. He's going out the back. Oh my God, they're in my building. Grayson's men. They're in the hall. Silas, run." They heard a crash over the phone, the sound of Penelope's apartment door being kicked in. Shouting. "Where is he? Where's the drive?" "Silas is on the fire escape," Penelope was narrating, her voice terrified but clear. "They're on him. 2 men. My God, he just jumped. He jumped to the next roof. He's running. I think he's clear. He's gone." A moment later, a gruff voice came on the line. "Who is this? Who's on this call?" Arthur slammed the phone down, cutting the connection. The room was silent, save for their harsh breathing. The net hadn't just tightened. It had snapped shut. They were trapped. Grayson was in the building, and the only copies of the evidence were in the hands of a terrified hacker running for his life across the rooftops of Queens. "Well," Arthur Pendleton said, placing the revolver on his desk blotter, "this has certainly escalated." The silence in Arthur's study was deafening. The immediate physical threat of Mr. Grayson had receded for now, but the walls of the apartment felt less like a fortress and more like a cage. "He's not just cleaning up," Elsa said, her mind racing past the fear. "He's consolidating. He'll go after Silas, then Penelope, then us. We're on a clock." "And a short one," Arthur said, his mind already shifting from legal defense to tactical retreat. "He knows we're here. He knows I'm compromised. We have to move, and we have to be smart." He walked to an old analog phone on a side table, a phone that couldn't be hacked, and dialed a number from memory. "Yes, this is Arthur Pendleton. I'm calling in the rainy day marker. Code Justicia." He listened. "Yes, I'll hold." He looked at Elsa, his hand over the receiver. Justicia was a pro bono case I won for a very private, very expensive security firm. They are ex-Mossad, ex-MI6. They owe me. They will extract us and take us to a secure location. While Arthur made the arrangements, Elsa paced. "A safe house is defense. We need a fence. He's made a mistake. He's arrogant. He's ripping up the roots, but he's forgotten about the branches." "What branches?" Sarah asked, her voice hollow. "The people he's blackmailed," Elsa said. "He's using Chimera to spy on his rivals. Julian's video said so." She grabbed Arthur's newspaper from the coffee table, the Financial Times. On the cover, a story about an upcoming merger, Vane Industries to acquire Thorne Holdings. "Marcus Thorne," Elsa said. "The man I was laughing with. Damien's move against him it's too aggressive. It's not just a hostile takeover. He's trying to silence him. What if Penelope can get a message to him? What if we can, and his own people?" Elsa continued, her mind on fire. "The gala. When he ripped my dress, I saw his COO, Robert Morrison. He's been with Damien since the beginning. He looked ashamed." "Robert," Arthur scoffed. "He's Damien's shadow, a yes man. He wouldn't dare." "He would if he knew the truth," Elsa said. "Robert is a patriot. He's ex-military. He thinks Damien is a hard-nosed, ruthless businessman. He doesn't know he's working for a traitor. If we can get Julian's video to him, he could be our man on the inside." The plan was desperate, a web of what-ifs and maybes. But it was all they had. They were interrupted by a knock. Not the pounding of Grayson's men, but a quiet, precise, desperate rap, rap, rap. Arthur's hand went to the revolver. "Hide," he whispered. Elsa and Sarah slipped into the adjoining library. Arthur walked to the door, his gun at his side. "Who is it?" "Mr. Pendleton," a quiet, strained voice said. A voice they recognized. It's Robert Morrison. I saw the men in the lobby. I need to talk to you. About Damien." Elsa and Sarah froze. Arthur looked at the peephole. It was him. He looked pale, wrecked his tie undone. Arthur opened the door, the security chain still on. "Robert, what in God's name?" Robert Morrison, Damien Vane's right-hand man, didn't try to enter. He looked like a broken man. I can't be a part of this anymore. After the gala, he called me into his office. He was laughing. He was drinking champagne and laughing about the dress. He told me to start the paperwork to have Elsa committed. to call Dr. Alistair and get the forms backdated. And, Arthur pressed, and he told me to call Grayson, to clean up the reporter. He said it so casually, like he was ordering a car. Clean her up, Robert, and find that hacker she's using. I've been with him for 10 years. I always suspected. I always told myself he was just ruthless. But he's a monster. He was shaking. I'm out. I'm done. I'm taking my family and I'm disappearing. But before I do, this is everything I have. He pushed a thick manila envelope through the gap. His private calendar, the access codes to his real server, the one in Geneva, the one not even the feds know about. He looked past Arthur, his eyes finding Elsa's in the shadows of the library. He's not just a monster, Mrs. Vane. He's a coward. He was so terrified of you, of what you might know. The rip, that wasn't power. That was panic. He was trying to frame you as insane before you found this. Robert Morrison turned and walked away, disappearing into the elevator, before Arthur could say another word. Elsa stepped out the heavy envelope in her hand. She opened it. Inside, along with a string of codes, was a single folded piece of paper, a printout from a private encrypted bank server. It was a transfer order. A $10 million transfer authorized just that morning from a Vane Industries holding company. The name of the holding company was Chimera Final. The recipient of the funds, a private numbered account in Geneva, with a note, JH Final Payout. Julian Hayes. Sarah Hayes gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. What? No. That can't be. Elsa stared at the paper, the world tilting the pieces, clicking into place with a sickening final snap. He's not dead, Elsa whispered, the words hanging in the air. Oh my God, he's alive. Damien didn't kill him. He paid him. Julian Hayes wasn't a victim. He was a partner. The entire tragic death was a lie. The drives the paranoid "If I Die" video. It wasn't a dead man's switch against Damien. It was insurance. They're partners, Elsa said, the full monstrous truth landing. Damien was the face, Julian was the brain. They faked his death to buy him time to perfect Chimera, to build the surveillance state from the shadows, while Damien built the legitimate front. And the $10 million, that's his final payout. He's running. My brother, Sarah stammered, tears of rage and betrayal welling. He let me grieve. He let me fight for him for 5 years. And now, Elsa said, her eyes flashing with a new, terrifying fire, we have to find a ghost. The revelation hit the room like a physical blow. Julian Hayes, the sainted martyr, the brilliant, tragic boy, was alive. He wasn't a victim. He was the chief architect, a partner in a monstrous conspiracy. The "If I Die" video was a lie, an elaborate insurance policy. The files Sarah had guarded for 5 years weren't a plea for justice. They were a fail-safe. He let me grieve. Sarah Hayes stammered the words, catching in her throat. Tears of rage and betrayal streamed down her face. He let me dedicate my life to finding his killer, while he was a monster. This changes everything, Arthur said, his legal mind reeling. No, Elsa said, her voice ablade. It doesn't change a thing. It just changes the target. It's not one monster. It's 2. And this payout, she tapped the bank transfer printout, means they're dissolving the partnership. They're running, and they're about to turn on each other. Her mind was working at lightning speed. Arthur, your security team. I don't want to go to a safe house. I want to go to Geneva. Arthur Pendleton looked at her at the righteous fire that had replaced her fear, and a slow, leonine smile spread across his face. I was hoping you'd say that. My contacts can have us on a private jet out of Teterboro in 2 hours. New passports included. I'm going, Sarah said, wiping her face, her grief hardening into a steel resolve. I'm not his grieving sister anymore. I'm his witness. Geneva, Switzerland, 24 hours later. The lobby of the Banque Girard was a hushed temple of old money. The air was sterile, smelling of marble and faint, expensive cologne. Elsa Arthur and Sarah sat in a discreet corner. Elsa, in a severe, impeccably tailored black suit, looked every inch the grieving widow, a grim irony she fully embraced. Arthur was her lawyer, Sarah her shell-shocked relative. Arthur's ex-Mossad contacts were invisible, blending in as bank patrons and security. Penelope's feed is live, Arthur murmured, an earpiece in his ear. The story drops in 5 minutes. The Standard, BBC and Reuters. The FBI is in the lobby of Vane Tower in New York right now. The story is a bombshell. Vane Industries, a decade of treason. At 2:00 p.m., precisely a man in an expensive but unassuming suit walked in. He was thinner than in the video, with a beard and glasses, but the eyes were the same, nervous, brilliant, and cold. Julian, Sarah's voice crackled over Elsa's earpiece from a cafe across the street. It's him. He's going in. The ghost was real. He was ushered into Benoit Girard's private glass-walled office on the mezzanine. 10 minutes later, Elsa's phone buzzed. A text from Penelope. It's done. Story is live. It's everywhere. The feds are raiding. Wait, Silas just found something. He's in the Geneva server. Girard. He's not just paying Julian. He's emptying Damien's accounts. All of them. Elsa. Julian isn't just taking his share. He's taking everything. He's double-crossing Damien. As if summoned by the chaos, the bank's heavy glass doors burst open. Damien Vane. His face was a thundercloud, his phone pressed to his ear. His public charm utterly gone. What do you mean, raided? What do you mean, assets frozen? Get me Morrison, get me... He stopped. He saw him. Through the glass on the mezzanine, he saw Julian Hayes signing the last paper. You. Damien's voice was a raw, animalistic roar that echoed off the marble. He vaulted the velvet rope and took the stairs 2 at a time. He burst into Girard's office, scattering papers. You, he screamed, grabbing Julian by the collar. You set me up the drives. The reporter. You leaked it. You were going to take my money and run. Julian Hayes, his face twisted in a snarl, shoved him back. Your money. My brain. My work. You were just the stupid, pretty face. I built an empire and you couldn't even control your wife. You had to play the big man, had to rip her dress, and you brought the whole world down on us. I am handling it, Damien roared, drawing back a fist. But before the punch could land, the bank doors opened again, this time with a quiet, lethal efficiency. 4 grim-faced agents in suits. Interpol, Arthur Pendleton said with grim satisfaction. Treason has a way of cutting through banking privacy. Damien and Julian both froze. The fight drained out of them, replaced by a cold, shared terror. As they were cuffed, Damien's wild eyes scanned the lobby. He saw her. Elsa stood up and walked to the base of the stairs. She wasn't a victim in a ripped dress. She was the architect of his destruction, clad in armor like silk. Her eyes met his. Damien Vane, the billionaire who laughed, said nothing. His reputation wasn't just destroyed. It was an epitaph on a lie. Elsa's words at the gala hadn't been the kill shot. They had been the first domino. And now the entire rotten empire had fallen. The Vane-Hayes scandal became the largest financial and political trial of the century. Elsa Vane, using her testimony and the power she had reclaimed, became an advocate for corporate transparency, setting up the Hayes-Vane Foundation for digital ethics, with Sarah honoring the man Julian should have been, not the man he became. The ripped emerald dress was never seen again. She didn't need a reminder of her victim moment. Instead, she kept the first burner phone she ever bought, a small, cheap piece of plastic. A reminder that true power isn't about how much money you have or how loud you can laugh. It's about the courage to speak the truth, even when your voice is shaking, and especially when the world is watching. Thank you for listening to this real-life drama. If you were on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. What part of the story shocked you the most? Was it the rip or the final twist with Julian? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more stories of justice, revenge, and the truth coming to light, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. We have new stories coming every week, and you won't want to miss what happens next.